Remember that if you would like to purchase this or any Safari Ltd figure, you can do so at safariltd.com or at amazon.com/Safari Ltd. And don't forget to use coupon code BIONIC to save 15% on any order. Hello and welcome to the review for the Safari Ltd 2021 Armored T-Rex. I got this in a package with the Displetosaurus, and this one was kind of a pleasant little surprise. It's very unique and just kind of an interesting, charming little thing that I really wasn't expecting. And I had already seen, I think, one picture of it from David, who got it first in DMs, but I didn't really look at it for very long. And actually getting it in hand, I was like, this is not even necessarily something that I would ordinarily go out of my way to buy for myself, but it's really kind of just a cool idea, and I'm really excited to see what Safari could do with the concept in the future. Now, talking about this figure specifically, I'm gonna do this review a little differently than I normally do any of my reviews for any figure from any company. I just straight up wrote up a list of pros and cons, which I normally don't do, but I think it's the easiest way for me to kind of encapsulate all my thoughts on this one, just because it's such an oddity. So my first point that I want to hit on is actually a pro and a con, and that's just what the figure actually is. It's an armored T-Rex, a Tyrannosaurus with medieval armor plating on it. Now, the reason I say that this is sort of a pro and a con is because on the one hand, this is something that, from my perspective as an adult collector of prehistoric animal figures, it seems pretty silly from my perspective. It's not something that would really, it's not the type of figure that I would go out and buy, like I said. However, I can say that from the perspective of like an 8-year-old or a younger kid, I can imagine this being like the coolest thing ever, because like I said, it's a T-Rex in medieval armor plating. And that rides the line, I think, depending on, you know, the type of person you're aiming a product like this towards. That rides the line between silly and just epic. And so even though I personally look at it and I'm kind of like, okay, this is a charming but admittedly goofy kind of thing, I can imagine a lot of kids genuinely really loving this and thinking that it looks awesome. And I think that just the idea of like a medieval armored dinosaur figure is pretty cool. I've always been a big fan of a lot of fiction based around dinosaurs and humans interacting, and specifically like human technology and things sort of being applied to a world with dinosaurs. One of my favorite book series of all time is the Dinotopia books by James Gurney, and they actually have some stuff that looks, you know, kind of similar to this, even though I think typically in those books the armor is less functional and more just sort of to look nice, because generally they're pretty peaceful stories in a pretty peaceful world. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the general concept. I can definitely see why a lot of people have looked at this one and just gone, what are they doing? But I also think that from the perspective of just making a cool toy for, you know, younger kids and aiming a product specifically at younger kids, I think this is a great idea. Another pro of this figure is just the way the armor itself has been sculpted. I really think they did a great job with this. Like, they've got these really cool details kind of worked in, these little like patterns and things, and the overall shapes of all the plates look cool. We've got these leather bands to kind of show how they're actually being attached to the creature. I guess there's none of that for the thigh armor. We can just imagine that it's glued on. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. I really like the look of it. Got some spikes on the tail armor. And yeah, it's got this nice shiny chrome finish, and it's really well sculpted overall. We've got some little studs on this sort of section of plating around the torso, and he's got this cool helmet. I genuinely think they did a great job designing the actual armor on the sculpt. Another pro is that this is the first Safari Ltd figure, to my knowledge, of all time to have an articulated jaw. And I have to say it's a bit of a con as well, because it's not the greatest articulated jaw. I really love that they included one, but it's a tad loose. It works, as you can see, and that's good. I like things that actually function, but it's definitely a little bit flimsy. And I would like to see, if they do more of these in the future, them finding a way to make it a little more solid. Now, my biggest con with this figure, honestly, is just the actual T-Rex design underneath the armor. The armor's cool, the concept is fun, but it's a pretty basic, kinda silly looking T-Rex. It's fairly cartoonish, it's very Jurassic Park-esque, it's got kinda boring colors. The paint is fairly well applied, it's got some cool like orange staining on the feet and stuff, but it's a pretty basic, pretty kind of, like I said, cartoonish or just stereotypic looking T-Rex design. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't need this figure to be accurate. I don't expect a figure that is this sort of fantastical to also represent the animal of Tyrannosaurus in an accurate, like scientifically sound way. I just think it could be a little more interesting, maybe more colorful, and a tad less generic. So those are pretty much all of my thoughts on this figure. That's actually it. I don't have that much to say. I think it's fun. I think my biggest pro for this figure is honestly just the concept and how it could potentially be applied to other things, because, you know, just putting some armor on a T-Rex is cool enough, but I can imagine a lot more sort of creative directions that they could take with this idea, like making an armored pterosaur or an ankylosaur or some other kind of therioforan, maybe doing a sauropod. Like they should do an amargasaurus or a bahatosaurus where they put metal armor over the existent, you know, spines on the neck of the creature. I think that would be really cool. So I think there's lots of ways that they can make this idea a lot more interesting in the future. But as a start to this sort of concept, I think that this armored T-Rex and the upcoming armored Triceratops, which we will hopefully review here not too far in the future, I think they're a good, if not somewhat underwhelming start. Definitely not my favorite thing from Safari this year, but still, like I said, very charming and just a creative, fun idea, and I'm excited to see where they take it next. So for a size comparison, here we have the Daspletosaurus, here we have the Daeodon, and here we have the Giga, just kind of a random assortment of some of my favorite Safari figures right now. And that's about it. I'm not gonna give this figure a rating because I don't really know how I would rate it. For kids and stuff, I highly recommend this. I think it's a really well-designed, like well-made, well-sculpted little thing with a fun idea, and I think it's a great toy to get for like your kid or your grandkid or whatever. For fellow adult collectors like myself, I don't really think that I encourage you to get it, but like if you want it, I mean, sure, like you're not gonna be disappointed. It's well done for what it is, but I also understand why a lot of fellow collectors might not be super enthused over it. So that's about it. That's everything I have to say. Like I said in the beginning, if you would like to purchase this or any Safari figure, you can do so at safariltd.com or amazon.com/safariltd. And don't forget to use coupon code BIONIC to get 15% off of your order. Remember that I actually get a small commission every time you guys use that, so you are actually directly helping to support the channel if you use that code, and it'd be freaking awesome if you did that. And you save money, and why wouldn't you want that? So anyhow, that's everything for this video, and I will see you all next time.